I know this is about Albert Camus and his views on suicide. And this is also what I think about the mental health crisis. I think at least in some part could be done due to the existentialist views and the existential dread that most people have. At some part, I'm not saying all of it. Obviously there are neurotransmitters involved and environmental factors. But like I said, at least in some part could be done to this. This is a multifaceted problem, obviously, but let me just start with that disclaimer. Jeremy Weir, I think is his name, talks about in recapturing rapture and the video on Big Think, where he talks about our crisis in meaning and how we've lost it. Meaning, one point out, as he said, is religion. Sorry. And a lot of people used to hang their hats on that goat track. But as people are becoming religious, that meaning is starting to dissipate. Now, I can't for the life of me find the article in which this was written. But there's always this thing about in poor communities and poor countries, the suicide rate is lower. Now, that could be because not many people are looking at research there. I'm mainly looking at how to get food out and other problems. But and I can't find this article online anymore. My apologies, this is very unprofessional. But what it's also found, and what you generally find, is that there's more religion in poorer communities. And in Africa, there was a study, I think done by Pew Research, which found that in a similar economic household, the secular people were a lot less happy than religious. Now, I know this is generally because the religious have a sense of community, but in the UK, which is far more secular than the US, there's also a sense of community around sporting events, around sporting events, and around going to the pub as this. I know that alcohol is used as a coping mechanism, but as you can see, it's not just a sense of community, it's maybe how it's organized. But yeah. And also, if you look at existential dread, which is mainly done in the end by Linkin Park, you can see this person is going through a period of an existential crisis. I know it's banned here, but just hear me out. Look at the lyrics, listen to the lyrics. He works so hard, he gets so far. In the end, it doesn't even matter. And we all know how that ended for Chester. Another thing I think about is, this goes back to meaningful work, is that you tell people at university, sorry, and this is also linked to the whole you only live one life thing. You don't want to have any regrets. Imagine telling that to a 23-year-old, how much pressure that puts on them to find a job so that when they die, they don't have any regrets. That sounds like an extreme amount of pressure. Do you understand what I'm saying? And how does one cope with that? I'm also stating this because there was an oped written in the New York Times, which one usually refused to read because it's an oped. But this guy, I forgot his name, is a behavioral scientist. Sorry. And he states, at least in some part, this could be also because of an existential crisis. Because if you look at it, we've done everything. Mental health services have increased. Research into mental health. We are destigmatizing mental health issues. Look at the Olympics. Simone Biles, and got tons of support, also hate, but also tons of support for the putting on mental health first, which is good, but the suicide rate is still climbing. And also, if you think about it, retirement is also not really all that good. Think about, as I've stated, this goes back to my earlier point of having no regrets. You get told ever since you're a child, what job do you want to do? What work do you want to do? What do you want to be when you grow up? So you spent your whole life working up to that point. And then you have to retire. And now it's, okay, now what? You know what I'm saying? And then it becomes an hour. Like the Weight of Gold documentary, in which Michael Phelps and other Olympians talk about the high Olympic suicide rate. They went there, they did their jobs, and then they had this sense of emptiness. Because you worked your whole life to achieve something, then you achieve it, and then it becomes, and now what? Now this comes back to Albert Camus and the myth of Sisyphus. This is the best argument, or the most famous argument, I should rather say, against committing suicide. Sisyphus, as you know, is a Greek god pushing a rock up a hill for all of time, being tortured, and he essentially says we should imagine Sisyphus happy, Camus. But if that really is the best, it's like, really, I struggle, I work, I live my life, then I just die. That's very depressing. Now, somewhere else and I will in a future video link to all of these articles. I'm just getting this out there as an hypothesis, which could be used. Okay? Just an hypothesis. That what happens is, as a life event happens, you become ill, or a divorce happens. You start to question what the meaning of it all is. What's the meaning of life? Or something good happens, like you win an Olympic gold. What's the meaning of this? What's the point of it all? Why are we here? Just these thoughts. Yeah, that might be all I have. Now, wait. Yeah, this also links back to another song by Stacey Orica, More to Life. Because there's got to be more to life than this. You work and just die. Now, the main thing we have is just hedonism as a potential answer. Now, I'm not going to go lie like some other YouTubers, Savannah Brown said, lay underneath a neon light that said hedonism is God. Because that's generally what people say, just enjoy life. But when one is going through this, one struggles to enjoy life. There's also a link between existentialism and depression, which I did link to from somebody else. They didn't really like it, but what it states that since these questions don't really have any answers, one might get into a state of despair over the fact that no one can really answer what is the meaning of life. And as I've said earlier, people generally suck at creating their own meaning. Otherwise, there wouldn't be existential counseling, existential stuff like this. Therapy. I apologize for this disheveled video and it being very unorganized. These are just the stream of consciousness and a potential hypothesis and my thoughts on the Albert Camus reason not to commit suicide. And in the secular world, we just have the myth of Sisyphus. And also there are people who have noted that a sense of community is what brings people together. And I agree, that is one of the mechanisms at which religion operates. But one then has to account for the more secularized meaning to life that they have in England. But they also have a sense of community. With the football, the cricket, the rugby, people coming together. But yet in every week 83 men take their lives. And I'm not saying religion is the only answer, obviously. The US has got the highest religiosity in everyday life of all developed countries. But they also have a very high suicide rate. It has climbed by 25% since 1999. And obviously, this thing is complicated. But this is just my thoughts on Albert Camus' suicide and the high suicide rate and the rate of mental illness.